So there's a lot of WWE news going on at the moment. Let's get straight into it with WWE releasing more employees. Yes, it was announced yesterday that WWE has released more employees, including longtime ring announcer Tony Chimel. Former WWE ring announcer Tony Chimel and several other employees have been released by the WWE. There are several employees released by WWE this past Friday. This is according to a report by PW Insider. Now, most of the cuts were logistical and behind-the-scenes staff that were working out of the company headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. So there aren't any WWE superstars or on-screen talents that were released. It's believed around 10 to 15 employees were let go, but Tony Chimel is the most well-known name who was released by the company. Now, he had been with the company since 1991. Actually, I read a couple of reports that said he might have even been with the company prior to that in 1989. But he most notably worked as a ring announcer for the Smackdown brand. Now, Chimel moved into a behind-the-scenes role in recent years, working as a production manager and overseeing the WWE ring crew, setting up the ring for live events and television. He often made special TV appearances for Christian and WWE Hall of Famer Edge, including cameos on the WWE Network show and other cameos on WWE TV or the Hall of Fame with Beth Phoenix a couple of years ago, etc. Now, in addition to Tony Chimel being released by the company, another name that came as a surprise to others inside the company was Derek Castleman. He had been WWE's director of venue merchandise for remote operations and had been with the WWE since 1993. Castleman had been with the company for more than 27 years and was well liked by many, according to sources inside the company. Now, of course, whenever you hear a story about anyone losing their job, regardless of the industry that they're in, whatever, anyone losing their jobs, especially in the current climate when it comes to the pandemic, it absolutely sucks. So I really sympathize with Tony Chimel for that. And I'll be totally honest, if I'm going to rank my, top ring announcers or anything like that, with Howard Finkel being the top, because he is the greatest ring announcer of all time, Tony Chimel was never really my favorite ring announcer. He really wasn't. But to me, there was an element of comfort with Tony Chimel being a ring announcer because he was around for so long. And growing up, he was the announcing voice of SmackDown. Growing up and watching SmackDown for all of those years, Tony Chimel was the name you most associated with the ring announcing on that brand, and he did a good job. He did do a good job, and he obviously was very well liked in the company. There are videos out there. There is a video out there, I believe, of Michael Cole, and Tony Chimel says something about, it's like a ladder match, and he says about gaining custody of the championship instead of retrieving the championship, and Michael Cole just absolutely, rails on Tony Chimel. It's one of the more funnier things you will see, so be sure to check that out. I think it's on YouTube. It's definitely out there somewhere. But in addition to doing ring announcing for SmackDown, he also did ring announcing for ECW, the WWE ECW brand. Did Raw for parts of the Attitude Era, especially in 98, 99 as well. And like many great ring announcers, Tony Chimel had trademark announcements for the likes of Edge, obviously, doing the whole Rated R Superstar gimmick at the top of his voice, making his voice crack whenever he introduced him. But he also had a trademark announce for John Cena as well, because you've got to remember, he was very big in the development of John Cena on SmackDown, doing the John Cena intro, as John Cena really cut his teeth on SmackDown in the early 2000s. So he's actually very close with both Edge and Cena. They're both very good friends of Tony Chimel. So when I heard the news that Tony Chimel had been released by WWE, it was one of those situations where, and I think this is the case a lot of the time when people get released, to be honest, where you're kind of in this mixture of both, where it's both surprising and it's not surprising. Because obviously the surprising element of it is that his name just comes out of nowhere. We haven't heard any inkling that Tony Chimel was going to be released by WWE. But the non-surprising element for me is that WWE just had their third quarter call with their investors and their stockholders. And as we head into quarter four at the end of this year, these decisions about releasing employees and releasing talent when they're done, the majority of the time, especially when you look at those releases that happened back in April this year, these decisions are made to ensure that WWE has a positive call at the end of the quarter, which is why it's been done. This is why Tony Chimel has been released here, and the other people that have been released by the company. It's money. It's purely money. It's all about that. It's all about them going into their final quarter call, whenever it is, and say, we did a profit, we drove revenue, and blah, 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 because they cut expenses down. That's why they did it. And by cutting expenses down, they release people. So it's always about money. It's always about money. And the saddest thing for me about Tony Chimel being released by WWE, obviously, apart from him losing his job during a pandemic, that's always incredibly sad. But the saddest thing about it for me is that I think, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with me here, that I think Edge is going to defeat Randy Orton for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania next year. And it doesn't look like we will have Tony Chimel announcing Edge as the 12-time World Heavyweight Champion, which sucks because the Tony Chimel Edge announce is what everyone associates Tony Chimel with. But I suppose they could always bring him back for that, right? I mean, they could always do that. So I think when it comes to the venue merchandise release, I think it's another indicator that WWE isn't going to be running any live events anytime soon. Now, of course, we know the plan internally for WWE is to get fans back in the building at events in 2021, possibly for the Royal Rumble, maybe even the end of this year, definitely for WrestleMania, whether it comes to how much the capacity for the stadium will be by then, whether it's at Raymond James Stadium, and potentially if it's at Raymond James Stadium, it could be full capacity, which is insane. Or if it is at SoFi Stadium at 10% capacity, 15% capacity, who knows? But the plan is to get fans back in for WrestleMania, definitely, maybe even earlier than that. But this release about the venue merchandise says to me that, look, the live event schedule that WWE was previously on, the whole 5 nights a week deal, that might never return again. Personally, I don't think it needs to. But even so, there have been rumours that even a reduced live event schedule won't return until 2022. However, of course, yesterday we get the news about a vaccine that's potentially 90% effective, which, if that's right, if that's true, if it's legitimate, that could be a game changer. So, like with everything in 2020 so far, everything is changing very, very quickly, especially when it comes to the world of WWE. But going back to Tony Chimel, it's obviously very sad to see Tony Chimel go. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about today was Alexa Bliss and some comments that she made defending WWE over labeling wrestlers as independent contractors. Now, obviously, this is a topic that's a very emotive topic. It's a topic that's been in the news ever since WWE cracked down on their talent using third-party platforms such as Twitch, YouTube, Cameo, etc. And the whole discussion about wrestlers being labelled as independent contractors reared its head once again, as it should, by the way. Andrew Yang, former Democratic presidential candidate, also has been speaking about this and has, by all accounts, been reached out by various WWE superstars about this. But Alexa Bliss has made some comments about it as well, which I find very interesting. Now, Alexa Bliss made an appearance on the Alison Rosen Is Your New Best Friend podcast, where she discussed a wide range of topics, including WWE labeling their talent as independent contractors. Now, a fan asked the question about the criticism that WWE faces for doing this, but Alexa Bliss, that staunch warrior inside the WWE trenches, defended the company over this topic. She said, quote, WWE takes care of us, easy for me to say, 100%. We are all in a contract, and if anything happens inside the ring, WWE takes care of. Our health is 100% priority. Our health and safety is 100% priority in the company. Unfortunately, we're living in the middle of a cancel culture where people try to start rumours and make their assumption of things. There has never been a time where I've ever felt uncomfortable about being in the ring or ever felt forced about being in the ring. Even when I was injured, I had concussions, and Vince said, all right, well, we're going to send you to the best specialists there are. And he did, and I saw a concussion specialist, and they went above and beyond to take care of me. I know everyone feels that way, end quote. Now, of course, for decades, this has been a very hot topic among wrestlers, among fans in the industry, and all of that kind of stuff. But despite pushes for it in the past, and despite a minority of wrestlers being vocal about it, there has never been a union in professional wrestling. There has never been a chance that WWE would move their independent contractors to full-blown employees. But this has reared its head once again, as I mentioned, when WWE cracked down off their talent making money off of third-party platforms such as Twitch and Cameo. Now, I just had to talk about this. when I saw Alexa Bliss's comments, the reason why I had to talk about it is because it's absolute BS. It's absolute BS. Have you heard a more corporate WWE response in your life from one of their performers? Now, the reason why Alexa Bliss is speaking like this is obviously, one, she's under contract with WWE, she doesn't want to get in trouble. But two, Alexa Bliss, she only knows WWE. She came through the WWE system in NXT, she came through the Performance Center, and now it's not to say just because she hasn't worked on the indies, she doesn't know pro wrestling, because that's not fair and that's not true, but WWE made Alexa Bliss a star, and she's obviously very, very grateful for that. But to me, when I see comments like this by Alexa Bliss, this is why we will struggle to see change in the ruling of independent contractors in pro wrestling. This is exactly why. Because there are certain people happy with what they've got in the pro wrestling industry and they don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to rock the boat, and that's exactly what Alexa Bliss's comments say there to me. Alexa Bliss is high up in WWE. She does very, very well. She has her podcast, she has her show, she's featured in major storylines, she's a 1,000,000-time women's champion right now. The system works for her. Why would she want to change that? It benefits her. So why would she want to change that? But what I would say to Alexa Bliss, if I could talk to her, I would say, you also have your colleagues being told they're not allowed to make money on third-party platforms during a pandemic where their merch and their live event bonuses are down. Why can't they make money during that pandemic? Because WWE wants that money. Because it shouldn't be money that's in the pocket of the performers. And I would also say you, yourself, and your colleagues don't get health benefits. You and your colleagues have to pay for your own road expenses, for food, for hotel rooms, for gas, and for other things while you're on the road. You and your colleagues, some of which are on far less money than you, are told they are not allowed to take outside projects because WWE owns them. WWE owns their performing name and they own their real name, according to Vince McMahon. When in reality, they don't. They don't. They're a contractor, not an employee. WWE can't tell them where and when to go. They can only say, we need you for these dates. You can't say when you're not working for WWE what you can do. Yet, WWE still does that. And it's this indoctrinated rhetoric, like Alexa Bliss is just mentioning there, that just makes me shake my head. Because how can you affect real change in what is such a morally corrupt issue, like the independent contractor ruling in professional wrestling, when you have top talent in the company, the people who can push for real change, the people who can affect real change, saying that they're happy to go with the flow. And this is why we've never got a union in professional wrestling. It's Hulk Hogan and the union all over again. Right, the story's there. Jesse Ventura wanted to make a union, but Hulk Hogan was the WWE champion at the time. He was the one that needed to spearhead it, and Hulk Hogan stooged it off to Vince McMahon, and Jesse Ventura disappears. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And this is why we won't see change. Unless, of course, maybe, I know Andrew Yang is talking about if he's part of the Biden-Harris administration, he's going to go after WWE, and maybe somehow you get a government mandate. But again, can they really enforce that? I don't know. I don't know. And this isn't to be a criticism of Alexa Bliss. I'm a big Alexa Bliss fan. I really am. I've mentioned it a million times here on the channel. Her work so far has been great. It's been really great. Some of the best stuff on WWE TV right now is involving Alexa Bliss. But man, I saw these comments and I just shook my head. I just shook my head. And I'm not saying WWE doesn't take care of their talent, because they do. They have medical tests, they have the wellness policy, that's up for debate, by the way, but they have the concussion protocol, the physicals they do before they sign, WWE pays for their surgery, their rehab, they do take care of talent. But that's to ensure they can continue with this independent contractor ruling. And all of those things that I just mentioned, they would be fundamental for fully fledged employees of a company as well. And it's insane to me, because WWE is built on the TV programming and live events, and the talent are the lifeblood of that. The talent are the lifeblood of the company. I know they say the fans are, and the fans are, but there's no show without the talent. There is no show without the talent. And they're not even employees. They're the most important part of the company, and they're not even employees. It's disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. So when I saw those comments by Alexa Bliss, I just shook my head. I just shook my head. Now, we could see a former WWE Superstar attending Survivor Series in a couple of weeks, as it's been announced that Savio Vega is to attend WWE Survivor Series for The Undertaker's final farewell. It looks like the current and former WWE Superstars will be brought to the upcoming Survivor Series pay-per-view for the final farewell of The Undertaker. IWA Puerto Rico announced that former WWE Superstar Savio Vega will be attending the Survivor Series pay-per-view on November 22nd for Taker's final farewell segment. They said in a statement, quote, Savio Vega will be back in WWE, this time to be present during the retirement of his great friend and brother, The Undertaker, who culminates a successful career exactly 30 years after his first appearance at Survivor Series 1990. Now, Savio Vega has worked as an in-ring talent and producer for MLW in recent years, and he was also one of Taker's closest friends from WWE. He was even a member of the infamous Bone Street Crew, that's right, BSK, the locker room group in WWE. Now, there's no word yet what WWE has planned for Undertaker's friends and the final farewell segment, or if they're just attending backstage and will be guests. But I mentioned on my Undertaker video that I did yesterday, I think the best thing to do for The Undertaker and his segment at Survivor Series is to do a Ric Flair style retirement. And by that I don't mean Ric Flair, come out of retirement after about 6 months and wrestle again in TNA. What I mean is to do a retirement like WWE did on Raw in 2008. Right after WrestleMania 24, Ric Flair lost to Shawn Michaels. The following night, Ric Flair comes out, says his goodbyes, but then you have everyone come out. You have Vince McMahon come out, you have Michelle McCool, The Undertaker's kids, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kane, even John Cena maybe, whoever they can get, the biggest of the big, the most reputable and well-known names in WWE and pro wrestling history. Get them out, Hulk Hogan, who knows, even though Taker doesn't really like him that much. Get everyone out, and just in the same way, I suppose, that you had the Four Horsemen come out for Ric Flair in 2008, you could also have BSK come out for The Undertaker. Because it's a retirement ceremony not just for The Undertaker, but it's a retirement ceremony for Mark Calloway too. So I think that's potentially what we will get there. Hence why Savio Vega will be there at Survivor Series. I think he'll just be, a body in the ring. And obviously he could be there to witness the final farewell of The Undertaker / Mark Calloway. Or, potentially, he could be there when The Fiend attacks The Undertaker. Now, that's not to say that I want that to happen, but who knows? Who knows at this point? Anything could happen in that final segment. And finally, some interesting news about the Sasha Banks versus Bayley match from Friday Night SmackDown this past week, considering the strong numbers that Bayley and Sasha Banks pulled in the ratings for that match. Friday's live edition of WWE Smackdown featuring Jey Uso versus Kevin Owens in the main event drew an average of 2.315 million viewers on Fox. This is according to Showbuzz Daily and their television ratings. Now, this final number is up from the overnight viewership that was released Saturday morning, which was an average of 2.209 million viewers. This number is also up 1.3% from last week's final SmackDown viewership of 2.286 million viewers for the post-Hell in a Cell episode of SmackDown. But the interesting thing here is that it was noted by Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio that the overnight ratings, the first quarter segment of SmackDown, which saw Sasha Banks retain her SmackDown Women's Championship over Bayley, brought a, quote, tremendous opening for the show, one that was described as absolutely fantastic. Now, the numbers fell from there, ending in a significant drop for the main event, but SmackDown was ranked number 1 in ratings for the key 18 to 49 demographic on network TV. SmackDown was also ranked number 1 in the 18 to 34 demo this week. But of course, election coverage with the US president election, easy for me to say, on CNN at 9 p.m. topped the night on the cable top 150 with a 1.77 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic. Election coverage on CNN at 9 p.m. also topped the night in cable viewership with 6.451 million viewers. So I think it's something like SmackDown gets really strong numbers. As I said, I want to say it's something like 2.4 or 2.5 million viewers tuned in to watch that Sasha Banks Bayley match. This is why it should have been a WrestleMania main event. I've been saying this for months at this point. Sasha Banks versus Bayley should be the main event of WrestleMania. How many times have I said that? I said it was too early to do the feud. I said it was too early to do the match. Why? Because it should be saved for your biggest time of the year. WrestleMania season, even the Royal Rumble season. because it's the biggest match you can do on your female roster on SmackDown right now. Now, it looks like Sasha Banks is going to be feuding with Carmella coming up next, but Sasha Banks versus Bayley is the biggest thing you could do on that SmackDown Women's division right now, and you've done it when? In October, November? Why? Because, we felt like we're running out of time to do the Banks and Bayley split. No, you're not. No, you're not. Talk about running out of time. The Seth Rollins-Rey Mysterio storyline, that ran out of time a long time ago. That's been taking place since May, and you're worried about Sasha Banks and Bayley? Oh, we took too long on that one, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's silly. It's silly. And every time they've done something with Bayley and Banks, the ratings are up. The split did a massive, massive number on SmackDown for SmackDown. When you had them on NXT, they beat AEW in the ratings, not in the demo, but in total viewership. When you had them on Raw ratings went up. Their match on SmackDown this week did a great number as well. Everything that Sasha Banks and Bayley touch does well in the ratings. And this is at a time, the ratings suck for WWE. I'll put it bluntly, the ratings are terrible. This is at a time where the ratings are down, and every time you put Banks and Bayley on TV or facing off against each other, tagging with each other, the ratings go up. So they found something, finally, that's a draw, and they waste it. They're wasting it in October, November, when you could save that for WrestleMania. You could do a WrestleMania main event. But they're not going to go that direction. That's obviously what it looks like now. But you have to congratulate Bayley and Banks. Congratulations to them. Now, what I will say about those figures, because I do think this is important to talk about when it comes to viewership and ratings in WWE or any program for that matter, that they can be manipulated and they can tell whatever story you want them to tell. Because what I will say is Sasha Banks and Bayley, they opened the show this week. And the pattern for WWE shows is that most viewers tune in for the opening segment, and then it drops off as you go throughout the show, and it gets lower and lower and lower. Look at Raw. Okay, the first hour does great, the opening segment does great, and by the time you've got to that third hour, no one's watching anymore, and they've all fallen asleep. And considering that Banks and Bayley opened the show, that's why they had a good rating. And as the report has mentioned, election coverage continued at 9 PM, hence the massive drop-off there. And obviously, viewers turn off as the show goes on anyway. So, like anything with ratings, you can look into them how you want. Ratings can be manipulated. They can be skewed to fit any narrative, quite frankly. But what you do have to consider is Sasha Banks is not only being proved to be a draw right now, she is going to explode. She is absolutely going to explode. Of course, Sasha Banks is in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. She, in my opinion, is about to become a really big star and a really big deal. If she's featured into that season as much as I think she is and as much as it looks like, she's going to be getting a ton of press, a ton of coverage. People who aren't tuned into Sasha Banks suddenly are going to be tuned into Sasha Banks. People are going to be interested in her. People are going to be like, okay, I really enjoyed Sasha Banks in The Mandalorian. I've got to check her out in WWE. They'll check her out on SmackDown. Maybe they won't tune in for the rest of the show, but they'll tune in for Sasha Banks. So she is going to be a really big deal. I think she's going to be a megastar. I really do think so. There's always that conversation, isn't there? You know, with The Rock and Batista, etc. Who's going to be the next person to John Cena as well? Who's going to be the next person, the next WWE superstar to cross over into the mainstream, cross over into Hollywood? Well, Sasha Banks, she's in a Star Wars series. That is a big deal. A Star Wars series that Disney are promoting. Sasha Banks is there. So she's going to be getting a lot of attention, a lot of money. She's going to become a megastar. I really do think so. And I think the ratings are already starting to show that. And I think they're just going to go up for whatever segment Sasha Banks is in. And it's just the beginning. I really do think it's just the beginning for her. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on some of those news stories today? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about WWE and pro wrestling, so be sure to leave a comment below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.